So Shudder just dropped a brand new original film called Perpetrator, and yeah, I've got some thoughts on this one. But before I get into them, welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thank you for joining me. My channel is all horror and thriller movie content coming at you, and listen, do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard. So Perpetrator tells the story of Jonny Baptiste, a reckless teen who's sent to live with her estranged aunt, and on the event of her 18th birthday, she experiences a radical metamorphosis. And when several teen girls at her school go missing, a mythically feral Jonny is forced to go after the perpetrator. And Perpetrator is one of the most baffling and bewildering horror films I have seen in quite some time. Let's start off with the characters, because the characters in this are not great. There's not really any sort of character development of anyone outside of our main character. And even her character, there's not really anything all that interesting about her. She doesn't really have any sort of redeeming qualities. She steals stuff, she's selfish, she lies, and there's not really much growth. There's not really much of a character arc. And that kind of brings me into really the story, as just in reading the synopsis here, you understand that she's going to have this metamorphosis. She kind of turns into this feral creature. And so while watching the movie, I'm just kind of waiting for that point to happen. And it takes like 40 minutes into the movie before that to happen. And so there's this like kind of long lead up to it that's pretty insignificant and kind of boring. And I'm just waiting for something to happen. And then that finally happens, only there's not really any sort of fleshing out. There's not really any sort of expanding on what it means, what this metamorphosis means. I still don't even really know what exactly she metamorphosized into. I don't really know what her abilities are. I don't really know what she can do, other than she kind of gets crazy and I guess sort of has a bit of like superhuman animal-like strength, and that's really about it. And it's all just presented in sort of a weird kind of confusing way, to where I still don't entirely know what exactly this metamorphosis process really was, or what exactly it did to her, other than made her have some like long fingernails and her teeth look kind of weird. Large portions of this movie, there's like no conflict. There's like no conflict that's really sort of propelling the narrative forward. As we're waiting for her to experience this metamorphosis, it happens one night on the night of her 18th birthday, and she kind of freaks out and runs around, and things get a little bloody. She doesn't do anything to anyone, things get bloody. And that doesn't really play any sort of a factor in the rest of the movie until like the very end. And so there's like all these scenes that just feel so inconsequential. There were a handful of times in the movie where I'm sitting there watching and I'm thinking, what does this have to do with anything? I don't know what this is supposed to be. There's no sort of struggle within her character. There's no sort of self-discovery. There's no real growth or like character arc. I feel like she's pretty much the same exact person she is at the end of the movie that she is at the beginning. Obviously, she goes through that metamorphosis, but like her personality and her character is essentially the exact same. And so there's just so much of this that just feels devoid of any sort of tension or any sort of conflict. And oftentimes when I am watching a movie that I don't really particularly like or doesn't really connect with me, I can at least see the attempt of what the filmmakers were trying to do. Like, they're attempting this, but they didn't really stick the landing, or it didn't really connect with me. But there are moments in this movie where I don't even understand what they were trying to attempt. There's so many moments that just come across as weird and clunky and disjointed and kind of awkward and cringy, that I was kind of just sitting there bewildered and just saying to myself, I don't know what this is supposed to be. I don't know if it's supposed to be humorous. It's certainly not scary. There's not really any sort of horror to this. There's a little bit of bloodiness to it, and obviously there's an aspect of it where some of the girls go missing, so you get a little bit of that in the end. But so much of this is devoid of any sort of scares, of any sort of horror, of any sort of eeriness or mysteriousness. There's no suspense or tension. And there's just large parts of it that I just did not know what the filmmakers were going for. The tone is just, it's just weird. I just don't know what to make of this and what it was really supposed to be. Yeah, this was just kind of a weird one for me. There were just many moments where I just did not really understand what the filmmakers were going for, what I was supposed to be getting out of the scenes, why certain scenes even existed. I understand just kind of in a general sense of the term. There's something here about her, you know, I guess sort of becoming this strong woman and coming into her own sort of thing and figuring out how to grow up and stuff like that and deal with some of the, I guess, oppressiveness that's around her a little bit. But yeah, it's all just done in a very sort of weird, confusing way that I just personally did not really connect with. So those are my thoughts on Perpetrator. I'm going to give this like a 3 out of 10. I just did not really get much out of it at all. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below, though. Would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you thought about it. If it worked for you, what about it worked for you? I would love to hear the opinion, especially of somebody who really enjoyed it. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you once again for watching. Greatly appreciate it. And I will see you next time on The Haunted Beard.